You want to know what happened when we first encountered the humans? Let me tell you about the day everything changed. The day we learned that size means absolutely nothing when you're dealing with these insane little creatures. My name is Karathvel, and I'm a Thrakari warrior. We stand 12 feet tall, our exoskeletons can deflect plasma rounds, and we have conquered half the galaxy. We thought we were the apex predators of space. That was before we met Lieutenant Jack Morrison and his squad of what we called the Little Ones. The Galactic Council had been tracking a small human vessel for weeks. The ship was tiny, barely the size of our escape pods, and the readings showed only 6 life forms aboard. 6. We sent 3 of our finest Dreadnoughts to intercept what we assumed was a lost research vessel. I was standing on the bridge of the Bloodfong when Captain Zarketh received the transmission from the human ship. The voice that came through our speakers was calm, almost bored. "This is Lieutenant Jack Morrison of the Terran Defense Corps. You have got about 30 seconds to change course before this gets ugly." Captain Zarketh's mandibles clicked in what could only be described as amusement. "Little creature, you are outnumbered 3,000 to 6. Your vessel is barely a speck against our ships. Surrender now, and we might allow you to live as pets." There was a pause. Then laughter. Actual laughter from a human. "Pets? That's cute. Really cute. Tell you what, big guy, how about you count to 10 and see what happens?" Our weapons officer, Grix-9, was already targeting their ship. "Captain, 1 plasma torpedo will vaporize them completely." "Wait," Morrison's voice crackled through again. "Before you do something really stupid, let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of the Battle of Kepler Station?" The bridge went silent. Every Thrakari warrior knew that name. Kepler Station was where the legendary human commander Alex Kane held off an entire Xerian fleet with nothing but a damaged frigate and sheer audacity. The battle that made the galaxy realize humans were not to be underestimated. "That was Kane," Captain Zarketh growled. "He is dead." "Yeah, well, Kane taught me everything I know. And right now, I'm looking at 3 very large, very slow targets. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn around, go home, and pretend you never saw us. Or what, little human? Or you're going to find out why they call us the species that doesn't quit." Before anyone could react, our sensors screamed warnings. The human ship, that tiny, insignificant dot, had somehow launched what appeared to be 6 smaller objects. 6 pods, each no bigger than a fighter, were streaking toward our ships at impossible speeds. Evasive maneuvers. Captain Zarketh roared, but it was too late. The first pod struck the Razor Claw's engine bay. Not a direct hit, mind you. The pod attached itself to the hull like some kind of parasite. Then it began cutting. We watched in horror as the tiny craft sliced through 3 layers of reinforced armor, plating like it was tissue paper. "What kind of weapons are they using?" Grix-9 demanded, frantically trying to target the pods. "Sir, the second pod just breached the Deathspine's weapons array. They're inside the ship." That's when we heard it. Over the comm channels, coming from inside our sister ships, the sound that would haunt my dreams for years to come. Human laughter. Not the maniacal cackle of madness, but the genuine amusement of someone who is actually enjoying themselves. "Knock, knock." A female voice, cheerful and terrifying. "Special delivery from Earth." The explosions started then. Small, precise detonations that took out critical systems without destroying the ships entirely. These humans weren't trying to kill us all. They were surgically dismantling our vessels while our crews of 500 warriors each scrambled around in panic. "This is Sergeant Lisa Park," the female voice announced over our comms. "I'm currently in your reactor bay, and I have to say, you guys really need better security. I mean, seriously, a child could have broken in here. How are they inside our ships?" Captain Zarketh demanded of his tactical officer. "Sir, the pods appear to have deployed some kind of cutting laser that can slice through any known material. They are creating their own entry points." Another voice joined the chaos, this one with a thick accent I couldn't identify. "This is Corporal Maria Santos. I have taken control of your navigation systems. Hope nobody gets motion sick, because we are about to go for a ride." The Deathspine began spinning, slowly at first, then faster and faster, until the massive dreadnought was tumbling through space like a child's toy. The screams of terror from 500 Thrakari warriors echoed through our comm channels. "How?" I whispered. "How is this possible?" Captain Zarketh's eyes were wide with something I'd never seen before: fear. "Give me Morrison. Now!" The connection crackled to life. "You rang. What do you want, human?" "Oh, now we are talking business? Good. Here's the deal. You're going to recall all Thrakari forces from the Vega system. You're going to leave the human colonies alone. And you're going to spread the word that Earth is off limits. Permanently." A third voice chimed in, young and cocky. "This is Private Tommy Chun. I have rigged your main power core to detonate in about, 3 minutes. Unless you want to take a really long, really cold nap in space, I suggest you listen to the lieutenant." "You are bluffing," Zarketh snarled. "Am I? Hey, Park, show them we are not bluffing." The lights on our bridge flickered. Once, twice, then they went out completely. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. "That was just a taste," Morrison said. "Chin's got enough explosives planted in your ship to turn it into the galaxy's most expensive fireworks display. But hey, I'm feeling generous today. You have got 2 minutes to agree to our terms." "This is impossible," Grix9 muttered. 6 humans against 3 dreadnoughts. It cannot be happening. But it was happening. And that's when I understood something fundamental about humans that the rest of the galaxy had missed. It wasn't that they were physically superior. They weren't. It wasn't that their technology was better. It wasn't, at least not by much, that IT was that they were absolutely, completely, 100% insane. While any sane species would see 3 massive warships and surrender, humans saw 3 massive targets. Where we saw overwhelming odds, they saw an interesting challenge. Where we saw certain death, they saw Tuesday afternoon. 30 seconds, Morrison announced cheerfully. Captain Zarketh looked around the bridge at his officers. Each one avoided his gaze. Finally, his shoulders sagged in defeat. "We accept your terms." "Excellent. See? That wasn't so hard. Oh, and Captain, next time you want to threaten someone, maybe check their service record first." Jack Morrison, veteran of the Titan Rebellion, survivor of the Proximus Siege, and holder of the Terran Medal of Honor for services above and beyond the call of duty in the face of impossible odds. It's all in the public records. The pods detached from our ships and returned to the tiny human vessel. Within minutes, our systems were back online. Our crews were no longer vomiting from induced vertigo, and the immediate threat of explosive death had passed. But the real damage was done. Word spread through the Thrakari fleet, then through the entire Empire, and eventually through the whole galaxy. 6 humans in a ship the size of a shuttle had defeated 3 of our finest dreadnoughts without firing a single shot. That night, as I lay in my bunk, trying to process what had happened, I realized something that chilled me to my core. Those 6 humans hadn't been trying to start a war. They hadn't been trying to prove humanity's superiority. They'd just been having fun. They'd humiliated the Thrakari Empire's finest for entertainment. And that's when I knew we were dealing with something far more dangerous than any weapon or warrior we'd ever faced. We were dealing with a species that found joy in the impossible, humor in the face of death, and adventure in the most terrifying situations imaginable. The next morning brought new intelligence reports. Human ships were appearing throughout the galaxy. Not invasion fleets or military convoys, but small groups of explorers, traders, mercenaries, and what they called adventure tourists. Each group was small, seemingly insignificant, and absolutely terrifying once you knew what to look for. Captain Zarketh called me to his quarters that morning. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Karath Vel, I'm reassigning you to Intelligence Division. I want you to study these humans. Learn everything you can about them. Because if we ever encounter them again, I want to know what we are dealing with." I accepted the assignment, though I suspected it was already too late. The humans weren't just coming to our part of the galaxy. They were coming everywhere, bringing their insane courage, their impossible optimism, and their terrifying ability to turn any situation into their advantage. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about what happened next, because the story of Lieutenant Jack Morrison and his squad was just the beginning. What came after made our encounter look like a children's game. 2 weeks later, I was stationed on the border world of Keth Prime when the refugees started arriving. Not human refugees, but our own people. Thrakari families fleeing from something in the outer systems. When I interviewed the first group, their story made no sense. It was just one human. The patriarch kept repeating, just one, but he wouldn't stop. No matter what we threw at him, he kept coming. That human turned out to be Marcus Steele, a bounty hunter tracking a war criminal who'd taken shelter in Thrakari space. Steele had followed his target across 6 systems, through 3 fleet engagements, and passed every obstacle we could throw at him. He'd finally cornered his quarry on the mining world of Thek 7, where the criminal had hired an entire Thrakari mercenary company for protection. 200 of our best warriors against one human with an old blaster and a bad attitude. The fight lasted 18 hours. When it was over, Marcus Steele walked out with his prisoner. The mercenary company wasn't killed, they'd just quit. Every single one of them had decided that no amount of money was worth fighting someone who treated war like a sport and death like a minor inconvenience. He was laughing, one of the mercenaries told me. During the firefight, while plasma bolts were melting the walls around him, he was actually laughing and making jokes. What kind of creature does that? The kind that turns terror into comedy, I thought, but didn't say. As the weeks passed, more stories reached us. A human trader named Rebecca Cross had negotiated a peace treaty between 2 warring alien species by challenging both sides to a drinking contest. She'd outdrunk beings with 3 stomachs and metabolism rates that should have made it impossible. Another human, an engineer called David Wong, had single-handedly repaired a space station's failing reactor while it was in the middle of a solar flare. When asked how he'd survived the radiation that would have killed any other species instantly, he'd shrugged and said, "I have worked in worse conditions. You should see a New York subway in August." But the story that really got our attention was about a human scientist named Dr. Jennifer Brooks. She'd been captured by the Vex Collective, a hive mind species that absorbed the knowledge and memories of other beings. The Vex considered themselves the ultimate life form, a perfect fusion of millions of absorbed minds. 3 days later, Dr. Brooks escaped. Not only did she escape, but she somehow corrupted their hive mind with what she called random human thoughts. The entire collective collapsed into chaos as their perfect unity was overwhelmed by human emotions, contradictions, and what their records described as an inexplicable urge to argue with themselves. When I read that report, I had to put it down and take a long walk. A single human had destroyed a hive mind that had existed for millennia just by being herself. The implications were staggering. That's when I started to understand the real truth about humans. They weren't just physically tough or technologically advanced. They were cognitively hazardous. Their minds worked in ways that could break other species just by exposure. But the final piece of the puzzle came when I met one of them face to face. Her name was Captain Rachel Torres, and she walked into my office like she owned the place. Which, considering what I'd learned about humans over the past month, she probably could have if she'd wanted to die. I was stationed at the Keth Prime Intelligence Division, supposedly one of the most secure facilities in Thrakari space. Our guards were elite warriors, our defenses were military grade, and our security protocols were designed to keep out entire armies. Captain Torres had walked past all of it carrying a cup of coffee and humming what I later learned was something called classic rock. "Morning, Karath," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk like we were old friends. "Mind if I call you Karath?" Karathvel seems so formal. "Ister daher." She was barely 5.5 feet tall, maybe 130 pounds, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. By any reasonable standard, she should have been completely insignificant. Instead, she was the most terrifying thing I'd ever encountered. "How did you get in here?" I managed to ask. "Oh, that. Yeah, your security system has some interesting vulnerabilities. Nothing major, just a few dozen ways to bypass the entire network without triggering a single alarm. I left a report with your tech guys. They seemed grateful." She took a sip of her coffee and smiled. It was the kind of smile that made me want to check if my insurance was paid up. "I'm here about the Morrison incident," she continued. "Seems like you have been asking a lot of questions about my people. Your people nearly destroyed 3 of our finest warships. Nearly? Karath, if Jack had wanted to destroy your ships, you'd be having this conversation in the afterlife. He was playing with you. Playing. She said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. I don't understand your species, I admitted. You are small, fragile, short-lived. By every measure, you should be at the bottom of the galactic food chain. Instead, you're causing empires to collapse just by existing. Captain Torres leaned back in her chair, and I noticed she'd somehow managed to put her feet up on my desk without me seeing her move. Want to know a secret, Karath? The reason humans are so dangerous isn't because we are strong or smart or tough. Though we are pretty tough. Then what is it? We are bored. I blinked. Bored. Earth is a death world, right? You have read the reports. Gravity that would crush most species, whether that kills for fun, predators that hunt other predators for sport. We evolved in hell, and we got really, really good at not dying. She gestured vaguely at the walls around us. But then we got to space, and we found out that most of the galaxy is, well, it's kind of boring. Most species are reasonable. They follow rules, they negotiate, they surrender when they are outmatched. Where's the fun in that? Fun. See, here's the thing about humans. We need challenge. We need excitement. We need something to fight against, or we get restless. And when humans get restless, we start making our own entertainment. I thought about Lieutenant Morrison and his squad, turning a space battle into a game. About Marcus Steele treating a firefight like a sporting event. About Dr. Brooks accidentally destroying a hive mind because she was thinking too loudly. You were saying humans cause chaos for amusement. Not chaos exactly. More like creative problem solving. Take the Morrison incident. You had 3 big ships, he had 1 small ship. Traditional thinking says he should run or surrender. But Jack looked at the situation and thought, how can I make this interesting? She pulled out a small device, some kind of human tablet, and showed me a video feed. It was footage from inside one of our ships during the battle. I watched in horror as Sergeant Park danced her way through our corridors, disabling security systems while humming cheerfully to herself. Lisa's having the time of her life, Torres observed. Look at her face. She's not scared. She's not angry. She's having fun. That's the human advantage right there. We turn every crisis into a game. But why? What's the point? Because if you are not having fun, what's the point of being alive? I stared at her, trying to process this alien philosophy. Your entire species treats existence as entertainment? Pretty much. Oh, don't get me wrong. We take serious things seriously. Protect our families, defend our homes, help our friends. But everything else? Fair game for creative interpretation. She stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the Thrakari cityscape below. Want to know what really scares the other species about humans? It's not our weapons or our ships or our tactics. It's that we are unpredictable. Unpredictable how? Every other species in the galaxy follows patterns. The Vex always assimilate. The Thrakari always fight. Centauri always negotiate. But humans? We might do any of those things, or we might do something completely different that nobody's ever thought of before. She turned back to me, and I saw something in her eyes that made my exoskeleton tingle with warning signals. Want to see what I mean? Before I could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and my computer screen lit up with emergency alerts. What's happening? I demanded. Oh, that's probably my ship, Torres said casually. I told my crew to start the demonstration if I wasn't back in 20 minutes. What demonstration? The one where we show your military exactly how vulnerable this facility is. Don't worry, nobody's getting hurt. We're just having a little fun with your defense grid. I rushed to the window and looked up. In the sky above us, a small human vessel was performing what could only be described as aerobatics around our orbital defense platforms. The ship was tiny, maybe the size of a personal transport, but it was moving in ways that should have been impossible. That's the wild card, Torres said proudly. My ship. She's not much to look at, but she's got personality. As we watched, the wild card somehow managed to tie 3 of our defense satellites together with some kind of energy tether, creating a massive knot in our orbital network. The satellites began spinning helplessly, their weapons systems pointing in random directions. "How?" I whispered. "Trade secret, but I will give you a hint. When everyone else is thinking inside the box, humans are busy turning the box into a paper airplane." My communicator buzzed. "Sir, we need you in the command center immediately." The humans are? They are what? They are spelling out words with our defense satellites. "Sir, they have made our entire orbital network spell Hello Karath in letters visible from the planet's surface." I looked at Torres, who was grinning like a child who just pulled off the ultimate prank. "You did this to prove a point. I did this because it's hilarious. The point is just a bonus." She activated her communicator. "Wildcard, this is Torres. That's enough showing off for one day. Return to normal space and stop playing with their toys." "Ah, come on, Captain," a voice replied. "We were just getting started." Rodriguez found a way to make their main gun play music. "Save it for next time, Danny. We have made our point." The alerts stopped blaring. Through the window, I watched the wildcard release our satellites and drift back to a respectful distance. Within minutes, our defense grid was back to normal, though I noticed several of our technicians were still staring at their screens in bewilderment. "Why?" I asked. "Why reveal your capabilities? Why show us what you can do?" "Because now you know," Torres said simply. "Now you know the humans aren't just lucky or crazy. We are competent. We can do things that seem impossible, and we can do them while laughing about it. That's worth more than any weapon." She headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Karath, the next time one of your people threatens a human ship, remember this conversation. Remember that we don't just fight back. We get creative." "Wait," I called after her. "I need to understand. What do humans really want? What's your endgame?" She considered the question seriously. "We want to explore. We want to learn. We want to meet new people and see new places and try new things. Most of all, we want to live interesting lives. And if other species try to stop you..." Her smile returned, but this time it had an edge to it. "Then we make things very interesting for them." After she left, I sat alone in my office for a long time, thinking about everything I'd learned. Humans weren't conquerors or destroyers. They were explorers who happened to be the most dangerous species in the galaxy by accident. They'd evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, so they become virtually unkillable. They developed minds that could find solutions to any problem, so they become tactically unpredictable. Most importantly, they learn to find joy in chaos, so they become psychologically incomprehensible to everyone else. But the real revelation came 3 days later when I received a message from Captain Torres. It was a simple text transmission. "Thanks for the chat. Check your news feeds." I did, and what I found changed everything. The Vex Collective, the hive mind that Dr. Brooks had accidentally corrupted, had officially requested membership in the Terran Alliance. According to their statement, they discovered that individual consciousness and chaotic thinking patterns produce far more interesting solutions than collective uniformity. The Xerian Empire, our oldest enemies, had signed a non-aggression pact with Earth after a human diplomat named Frank Wilson had challenged their war council to a poker game. Wilson had won 3-star systems and their promise to leave human colonies alone. Most shocking of all, the Centauri Republic had hired human creative consultants to help them solve their economic crisis. Within a week, the humans had invented 7 new forms of currency, established trade routes that shouldn't have been possible, and somehow convinced the Centauri that debt was actually a form of artistic expression. Everywhere humans went, they left change in their wake. Not conquest or destruction, but transformation. They took the established order and turned it into something new, something more dynamic, something more alive. That I drafted my final report that night, trying to capture everything I'd learned about humanity in terms that the Thrakari High Command could understand. "Humans are not a military threat in the conventional sense," I wrote. "They cannot be defeated because they do not fight wars the way we understand them. They turn every conflict into a game, every challenge into entertainment, every crisis into an opportunity for creative expression. They are cognitively hazardous not because their thoughts are toxic, but because their way of thinking is contagious. Exposure to human problem-solving methods causes other species to question their own assumptions, to consider possibilities they'd never imagined, to find joy in uncertainty. Recommendation: do not attempt to control or contain human expansion. Instead, prepare for the galaxy they will create. It will be chaotic, unpredictable, and absolutely extraordinary. I never sent that report. Instead, I resigned from the intelligence division and requested transfer to the diplomatic corps. If humans are going to change the galaxy, I wanted to be part of that change. 6 months later, I found myself serving as the Thrakari ambassador to Earth. My first assignment was to attend something called a barbecue at Captain Torres's home in a place called Texas. I will never forget walking into her backyard and seeing humans from a dozen different military units, all laughing and arguing and telling stories about their adventures. They welcomed me like an old friend, insisted I try something called brisket, and spent the evening teaching me a card game that seemed to have no consistent rules. That night, as I sat around a fire pit listening to their stories, I finally understood what made humans so special. They didn't just survive in an impossible universe. They found ways to enjoy it. And somehow, just by being themselves, they made everyone around them want to enjoy it too. Yes, I write this. 5 years have passed since that first encounter with Lieutenant Morrison. The galaxy has changed in ways no one could have predicted. Trade routes that were impossible are now routine. Conflicts that seemed eternal have been resolved with card games and cooking contests. Species that hadn't spoken in centuries are now comparing notes on human behavior. The humans call it making friends. The rest of us call it the most effective form of cultural conquest in galactic history. But here's the thing about humans that I have learned. They're not trying to conquer anyone. They're just trying to have a good time. The fact that their version of fun happens to revolutionize entire civilizations is just a happy accident. Well, mostly happy. There was that incident with the Regellian Trade Federation and the karaoke contest, but that's a story for another time. The point is, humans aren't coming to the galaxy to change us. They're coming to be themselves. The fact that being themselves involves turning every challenge into an adventure, every problem into a puzzle, and every enemy into a potential friend is just how they are built. And honestly, after 5 years of watching them work, I think the galaxy is a better place for it, even if they do insist on putting hot sauce on everything.